A new rumor out of Puck News says that Dana Walden is pretty much the next CEO of the Walt Disney Company, and Bob Iger is refusing to take any advice on whether that's a good idea or not. Someone else has just come in to take over the CEO succession process at the same time. We're wondering what is going on over there at the Walt Disney Company. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is cultural analyst Culture Casino. Have you analyzed your own casino, sir?
Yeah, it's doing quite fine. If you show up at mine, you will always win when it comes to pop culture and business entertainment.
That doesn't sound like it's a good... I mean, if the house always loses, but maybe both sides win.
That's right.
Here's a situation in which I think both sides might lose. This story out of Puck News from Dylan Byers here on Walden's shores, talking about Dana Walden, her connections to the Democrat Party, and the fact that Bob Iger wants to get his lady into that CEO seat. She's not really his lady. His lady is Willow Bay. But let's move on from that point very quickly. On Thursday night, while her friend Kamala Harris was accepting the Democratic nomination for president in Chicago, Dana Walden was on the Paramount lot in Hollywood for the season premiere of Hulu's Only Murders in the Building. Had Harris's historic ascension happened in any previous cycle, the Disney Entertainment co-chair would likely have been at the United Center with her husband Matt and other Hollywood bigwigs, Jeff Shell, Donna Langley, Bela Bajaria, and Brian Lord, who were on hand to witness the speech and take part in festivities. An amazing experience, per one such bigwig. Harris has described Dana and Matt as extraordinary friends, partially responsible for her marriage to Doug Emhoff, and the Waldens have donated to her campaign for decades. So, Culture, is it a big deal when the presidential candidate is somehow tied to her relationship with the possible future CEO of the Walt Disney Company?
I think it's a big deal. I think it's something that should be eye-opening, just how, closing of the ranks, both entertainment and politics, have become. Not only that, all media are tied directly to one particular side of the establishment rather than the other, or not equally balanced. I think it's quite significant, and I think it also speaks volumes into how things are organized in Hollywood and the direction that Hollywood is pushing for.
I think you're probably correct. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and they were basically asking, why do you think the media does this? Why do you think the media does that? And if you think of the media, and by the media, I mean not just the news media, but also entertainment media, as an apparatus of the Democrat Party, it starts to make things make sense, which is, of course, used to be a conspiracy theory until we all got more information. Alas, some strategic considerations probably prevented Walden from making the trip. ABC News, which she's in charge of an entire news apparatus. She is fascinating. So you're saying that the news apparatus and the entertainment apparatus is the same, and she's best friends with Kamala. It's so weird. It's almost like additional information causes that theory to be correct. Fascinating. Is hosting a presidential debate next month, and Walden's ties to Harris have already come under heavy-handed scrutiny from Donald Trump and the New York Times. Well, if the New York Times is saying it, it must be true. As notably, Walden is seen by most Disney and industry insiders as the leading candidate to take over the entertainment giant when Bob Iger steps down in 2026. Okay, I don't know that this is actually true. Because Bob Iger is definitely not stepping down in 2026. Obviously, the optics would have hurt both the company and its news division, as well as her own ambitions. I think that's a stretch. A brand withdrawal for all involved, and Igerian parlance. Culture, I don't get that joke. What's an Igerian parlance?
Well, I think it's referring to the way that Bob Iger would say something.
Oh, as a brand deposits and brand withdrawals. Yeah, he's bullish on brand deposits, and he's bearish on brand withdrawals.
Indeed.
Very good point here. Succession at Disney is an evergreen preoccupation in Hollywood and on Wall Street. Why that is? Well, it's because Bob Iger has been trying to find his replacement for nigh 10 years. Legendary, you might say, just like Davy Jones. You can't quite catch him. But recent developments have brought the issue back to force. On Wednesday, Disney's board officially tapped director James Gorman. Now, that's not the film director, James Gorman. You might be getting confused here. This is James Gorman, who is the former CEO of Morgan Stanley, to oversee the succession plan, kicking off the formal aspects of the process. Gorman This is a great statement right here. Ran an almost effortlessly smooth process to replace himself as CEO of Morgan Stanley. I wouldn't say it was effortlessly smooth. If it was, then Gorman didn't do a very good job of it. He just let it happen. What actually happened is James Gorman had 3 CEO candidates, and 2 of them didn't get the job. One of them obviously did, and the other 2 stayed on with the company. He did a fantastic job of finding a CEO for Morgan Stanley, and now he's executive chairman over there. The kind of move that Bob Iger wishes he could do here at the Walt Disney Company. I don't know that it's going to happen without a hitch, because Culture, how many former CEO candidates for the Walt Disney Company have stayed on at the company?
Oh my, they all seem to have left. In fact, there's a laundry list of them, which includes 2 of the people that are currently there as special consultants, and Mr. Mayer and Mr. Staggs. Let's see, Rasulo at one point was on that list. I can go through a whole list of them. I mean, he's chased anybody out that even got a whiff of that job, with the exception of Chapek, on whom he failed.
Well, he did eventually chase Bob Chapek out of the company. There's also Christine McCarthy, and we're just talking about the recent people here when we say this. Iger gave an interview to Kelly Ripa in which he confessed to being obsessed with finding his replacement. I think that Bob Iger sees his replacement every single morning, and he probably is obsessed with his replacement every time he sees him in the mirror. Thus, Hollywood's favorite parlor game recommenced from Toscana to the Rotunda. Officially, all 4 of Iger's chairpersons, Walden, Alan Bergman, Jimmy Pitaro, and Josh Tomorrow, are under consideration for the job and will go through the requisite preparation and diligence, including formal mentorship from Iger. In truth, however, only Walden and Tomorrow are broadly seen as leading candidates for the position. I would agree with that. Pitaro is a dark horse given his experience across divisions and strong support from the board. But, and this is a really good point, I totally agree with Dylan Byers here when he says that Disney may also one day spin off ESPN, and Iger presumably wants to preserve his optionality and keep a great leader in a crucial seat. I think he wants to keep Jimmy Pitaro there. I will say that. Bergman, I'm going to say, based off of what little public appearances we have from Alan Bergman, I don't see him. He is a Hollywood guy, but I don't see him in that CEO position being as smooth as Bob Iger is. Culture, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you're 100% right. I think, they do, for whatever reason, and it's not a good one to keep Pitaro around, if they were to spin ESPN out. By the way, that's another news organization as well as a sports organization, Jonas, but that they actually have control of. But what I also find is that while Bergman's probably the best candidate, he isn't exactly the most articulate, so he's not going to sound like Bob. In that position, especially at Disney, they've made themselves very visible during and outside of earnings calls. As you saw the propaganda piece that he put together with Kelly Ripa to talk about being obsessed to getting out of this gig. I think that you need somebody with that kind of performance in front of the cameras and to be a Disney leader, because they pride themselves in their ability to communicate. And who better communicates and can tell you a lie about something they don't have faith in than a weatherman? So. And that's how we ended up with Bob in the first place.
There's a quote about rain on your leg and telling you, water on your leg and telling you it's raining that comes to mind frequently with Disney. Increasingly, the conventional wisdom among the creative community in crowd is that Walden is Iger's preferred candidate. I'll bet she is, especially given her formidable skills as a television executive, her deep ties to the creative community, and her recent leadership of Disney's streaming operation. It's also the connections to the Democrat Party that are very important here. Leadership of Disney's streaming operation. Would this be the move to take the completely not profitable Disney Plus, take the name off of that, just slice that right off, and then slap it on top of Hulu, and then pretend that Disney Plus is profitable? Because I think that's Iger's doing more than it's Dana Walden's doing. But maybe I'm confused there. Or is it the fact that television right now is doing poorly across the board, except at Hulu, where it's ad-based and really reliant on catalog titles?
Yeah. In fact, some catalog titles they don't own, although they own almost everything now.
Yeah. I think the handling of streaming is probably not a feather in anyone's cap right now, except for, I'm going to point out, Kevin Mayer. Anyways, speaking of people who can put investors at ease with public speaking. Anyways, and yes, they are also both moored in the Brentwood set. After all, it was Walden who came up with the ruse of a walk and talk with Iger so that Disney board chair Susan Arnold could reach him and offer him back his old job, as if Susan Arnold didn't have his phone number. Her office in Burbank has a side door that connects to Iger's suite. Huh.
I wonder if she gets to use the shower.
Interesting. Let's move on from that thought as quickly as possible. But for some reason, I didn't catch that sentence before. Her champions and acolytes are the very creators, producers, and agents who are so integral to Disney's core entertainment business, many of whom she has cultivated and empowered, those in whose weighted opinion helped drive Bob Chapek down the Matterhorn. So they didn't like Bob Chapek. They at least have that in common. Beyond Hollywood, however, there are many who question whether Walden has the financial experience to manage the myriad complexities of the rest of the business, especially at a time of massive disruption and competition. Here's the thing that I'm going to point out right here. This is why you have a CFO. In this particular aspect of the company, they need to rely heavily on someone like Hugh Johnston or in the past, Christine McCarthy, who are actually competent finance people. Christine McCarthy, of course, got saddled with the acquisition of Fox, which was not really a great financial move for the company. And of course, you would think that buying Star Wars and buying Marvel would be profitable for the company long term. I think Marvel probably actually profitable at this point. I question whether Lucasfilm has made them any additional money. If they tried to sell Lucasfilm right now, I think it would be less than the $4 billion here on the strength of the Star Wars brand alone, as they said back in 2011 when they first announced this, or was it 2012? Right now, that Star Wars brand obviously gone into the toilet. I don't know how much of the quote unquote television aspect that Dana Walden wants to take credit for. She has been a big cheerleader for Kathleen Kennedy. We're hearing that she wants to distance herself from some of Kathleen Kennedy's more recent projects. Culture, none of Kathy's projects come to mind right now. Is there anything big that happened within Lucasfilm within the last couple of months that we're forgetting about?
Well, just the massive failure of almost everything they've released in
like
streaming for Star Wars. Yeah, I mean, the Acolyte is the bell that gets rung every day almost still on our channels because it's always contributing to the news. Will they, won't they change their decision to give us season 2 of the most profitable show I've had on my channel in a long time?
Yeah. And there's part of me that somebody sent me a petition today to see if I would sign it to say, please cancel the Acolyte. I said, I don't know that's in my best interests for Disney to cancel the Acolyte at this point. I don't want them to spend money on bad shows, but also I personally, it gives me lots to cover.
Hey, I'm of two minds on this, but I've signed both of those petitions.
This is very true. The list goes on and on. Here's an interesting quote. In my circles, everyone is resigned to Dana getting the job, one Disney veteran said, so somebody no longer with the company. No one disputes her TV bona fides or her style and polish, but no one believes she is capable of running a 225,000 person global business with such a complex set of strategic problems. Is that fair? Obviously, none of the four aforementioned candidates have Iger's holistic and comprehensive understanding of the business. I'm going to push back. I don't think Iger understands the theme parks.
Not anymore. I think maybe he had his finger on it, but he also had people that really got it. And one of those, I mean, he's let go the people who had the pulse of all aspects of the business. One of them was trying to get onto the board just a few months ago in Jay Rasulo. That's a guy that had his finger on the pulse of every aspect of the corporation that they just won't let back in the door. Tom Staggs, he can be rather eloquent as well when he needs to be. In fact, he can convince the investors that the NGE project was a good one and overspend to the tune of $1 billion. And then, of course, you have, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayers, who I think probably would be the leader in the clubhouse of any business person, because that's another person that had their finger on all aspects of the company for a while. So much so that these people were interchangeable in their jobs to the extent that they could move from one position to the other and still have a good handle on everything that was going on around them. So
right, I think that Mayer and Staggs are the clearest. Either of those would have enough familiarity with a large portion of the company that would say yes, absolutely. Right now, I look at Dana Walden and I see what's going on in television, and television not firing on all cylinders right now. And there are more cuts that are coming. Well, I'm not bringing up an ESPN reshuffling here, but the television business not quite doing what it needs to be. Streaming not quite doing what it needs to be doing for the company. Right now, the theme parks are keeping the entire company afloat. So if we're talking about, as this article references, a handsome, boring guy that or somebody who appears to be a handsome, boring guy that just happens to do the job and they don't have confidence they're just going to do it, tomorrow is the most obvious answer for me there.
I would argue that he's lost touch with what he was there to do. I'm going to say this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm going to say this for the final time. Great at running one park, terrible at running more than one park.
Well, he obviously approved the destruction of Rivers of America. So
yes,
anyone at the company that said yes to that right now, I'm going to say, is not competent enough to do that job well. There are plenty of places to expand that don't enrage the fan base, unless they are trying to do the Star Wars strategy, where they're saying, well, there's some other fan base over there on the other side of the ridge that has nothing to do with this fan base, that we're going to use that fan base instead in order to fund our company. So if I'm being honest, Staggs has his problems. Kevin Mayer, as much as I may not agree with all of the things the guy might say from a political aspect, I think that he's probably the best choice for the job. He doesn't need to be popular. He needs to be capable of speaking to shareholders and to fans at the same time. And he probably needs to be abrasive and not Disney nice enough to get the job done. There's probably a little something to be said there about vision. And if you're going to go for the low-hanging fruit like Coco Melon, just do it. Instead of trying to say that each one of your preschool projects is some kind of virtue signaling masterpiece that's going to change the world. You need to keep kids entertained for a while and instill some hope in them until you get them to the age where you can really instill good values in them. Not that Disney is interested in good values. Culture, is there anybody else we're missing here that needs to be considered for CEO of the company? Or is Dana Walden with her office door that connects directly into Iger's? No wonder he didn't want to give up his office.
Right.
Is there anyone else that we're missing here?
Elon Musk.
That would be an interesting choice.
No, I don't think we've missed anybody. I mean, the obvious choice would be somebody who's a visionary. We haven't had any of those in a long, long time. There's a limited number of them now. Those is why Musk's name popped into my head. We don't have a Walt, we don't have a Roy, and until we have a Walt and a Roy, we don't have a win. And I think that you put, I guess, today's Walt and Roy, we'd never be able to get in there. We wouldn't get Lassiter in position one, and we wouldn't get a quality CFO in position two to support him, because that's what you need. Disney has always been best run by two minds. One is a visionary and the other is a money person. And they're constantly butting heads, but eventually agreeing on some form of compromise that pushes the company forward and in line with their traditional values.
That's a very well stated. I couldn't say it any better myself, except for those in the comments. They might be able to say it better than you. Let's see if they can. Let us know in the comment section down below. Like this video if you like this video. And if you want to keep up with the CEO process here for the Walt Disney Company, consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.